The Scuba Diver Magazine podcast is sponsored by Scuba Pro, who are celebrating their 60th year of being an iconic scuba brand, and Scuba Pro has a few offers that I'm going to break down later on in this podcast. Hi, all of you wonderful scuba divers out there. Welcome to the Scuba Diver Magazine podcast. This week, a story about a rare medical condition. It's called systemic capillary leak syndrome, which sounds awful, but I'm going to read into that. That can affect scuba divers. Apparently, yeah, it is quite rare, but I just figured, you know what? That sounds quite interesting and probably something that we should know about. A competitive freediver has been bitten by a shark. There's a happy story to that ending, or a happy ending to that story. That makes a bit more sense. Scuba divers have found a handgun that was wrapped up and thrown into a lake. Someone was hoping that was never going to be found. And a team of clever people have claimed to have developed the very first 3D diver underwater tracker, which sounds very cool. Let's see what the news story says. The first news story comes from the 1014.co.nz. I don't know much about this publication, but I just saw scuba diver develops rare blood syndrome after deep cave dive. So apparently this is an incredibly uncommon medical case. A scuba diver who explored deep underwater caves suffered from a dangerous blood syndrome characterized by fluid leakage from his blood vessels. Now this sounds just awful. The syndrome is known as systemic capillary leak syndrome, or SCLS, occurred as a peculiar complication of decompression sickness. The news story continues to explain decompression sickness, but we all know about that as scuba divers. It continues, the recent case documented in the journal BMJ Case Reports on July the 5th involved a man in his 40s who sought treatment at the emergency room due to worsening shortness of breath following a deep cave dive the day prior. During the dive, he reached depths of approximately 100 feet, 30 meters, for a duration of about 40 minutes. So that's not particularly deep. In my opinion, or a particularly long dive neither. That's quite par for the course as far as scuba diving goes. So an associate professor of medicine at the University of Florida and an expert on capillary leak syndrome assisted in the patient's treatment. That's a bit of a red flag to me. The fact that an expert in this one particular syndrome was helping out. What is the old thing? You don't look for zebras, you look for horses. The fact that he was so up on this syndrome, maybe he was looking for it. I don't know. I'm just reading this news story. Assisted in the patient's treatment and identified several symptoms of SCLS. This severe form of inflammation causes the protein responsible for fluid retention to leak from blood vessels. Consequently, fluid leaves the cells, leading to SCLS. The team made a prompt diagnosis, resuscitated the diver, and treated the inflammatory cascade effectively, which may explain why he was able to leave the hospital in under a week. Dr. Jeffrey Cooper, a professor of emergency medicine at the University of Nebraska Medical Center, mentioned that this case highlights the potential complications associated with deep diving and serves as a reminder for healthcare professionals to consider SCLS when presented with similar symptoms. Typically, decompression sickness would be the initial consideration. So that's the kind of the end of the news story, but of course they don't mention the signs and symptoms of SCLS. Signs and symptoms can include nasal congestion and a cough that might be associated with a viral upper respiratory infection. Patients may develop malaise, so feeling a bit ill, nausea, lightheadedness, a faint feeling, abdominal pain, headache, and swelling of extremities. So yeah, a few of those are quite similar with signs and symptoms of decompression sickness anyway. But as always, it's always worth, if you feel something a little bit off after a dive, even if it is to recreational depths and not particularly long, seek medical care. And yeah, if you have nasal congestion and a cough that might be associated with viral upper respiratory infection. So if you have a cold whilst you're scuba diving, patients may develop malaise, nausea, lightheadedness, a faint feeling, abdominal pain, headache, and swelling of extremities. Any of those, seek medical care after a dive, and bring your logbook so that they can check all of that. Obviously, the doctors are going to jump straight to decompression sickness, but yeah, you might sort of mention to them is like, oh hey, also it might be worth looking up systemic capillary leakage syndrome. Ugh, it sounds awful, but yeah, something else to think about. The next news story is about Colombian freediver Christian Castaño Villa, who has been bitten by what was reported to be an oceanic white-tip shark whilst he was depth training near the southern Caribbean archipelago of San Andres, Providencia, and Santa Catalina. The incident occurred at around midday on the 18th of July at a dive site called Nirvana, but the freediver survived the encounter to the extent that he posted a photo showing his bandaged leg and hands with the boast, which was basically, you should see the other guy. Castaño, who's 38, has claimed 25 Colombian freediving records. He's currently rated by governing body AIDA as second nationally in the constant weight with and without fins disciplines, and third using bifins in free immersion and in static apnea. A member of the Colombian freediving team, he had been in training off San Andres for the CMAS Depth Outdoor World Championships in Roatan next month. Castaño and his fellow freedivers have been surprised to encounter several oceanic white tips whilst they were in the water. According to Coralina, the Colombian agency responsible for sustainable development of the archipelago, which is a UNESCO biosphere reserve, covering the 3 islands, the 5 atolls, and the coral reefs, one of the sharks bit out of curiosity one of the freedivers. It's reported paying tribute to the quick reactions of the local staff at effecting the rescue. It was reported that Castaño had remained conscious throughout, that he was able to use his limbs following the bites. He pulled himself out of the water, back onto the dive boat. He climbed out using his legs to up the exit ladder to get from the boat back to shore. He was taken to hospital on the mainland, stitched up without complications, and discharged later that night. So just superficial wounds. Hopefully he'll heal up and be able to continue with his training and get to the competitions. There is, however, a possibility that human intervention has affected shark behavior in the area. In March 22, Italian swimming instructor Antonio Stracciolani died at San Andres after a 2.5 meter long tiger shark bit his leg. The fatality had prompted Coralina to warn local tour operators to stop dumping animal carcasses into the sea to attract sharks for visitors. This is similar to what we saw in the Red Sea a good few years back. There was I think they were transporting sheep by boat, and if any of them died, they just threw them overboard. So the sharks in the area learned to just feed on these carcasses on the surface, and eventually they went after a person. Coralina said following the recent incident that it's important to remind the community that sharks are in their natural habitat and it is humans who entered their domain, so there is a need to have greater respect for nature and take precautions against such encounters. And the agency went even further in defense of the animals by adding, let's also remember that sharks are protected by national and local regulations, and anyone who is caught trying to attack them may be subject to environmental and judicial sanctions, extending even to prison sentences. So there's probably not going to be any kind of repercussions. People going out and hunting the sharks, which is always good to see. I did see a news report this week that in Egypt, after the recent shark attacks, a lot of the locals are getting a bit too gung-ho about hunting sharks, and like boasting about it on social media, even though it's like one of the biggest sources of incomes for the local area. Scuba divers coming in and looking for sharks, but all the locals are killing. I can't say all the locals, a select few locals are killing the sharks, so it's probably best to dissuade this action. But yeah, it is nice to see that it's just superficial wounds. It's just a quick taste, just a double check, and then, oh no, you're not my usual prey, and the shark went on, and Christian managed to get himself out of the water and stitched up as soon as possible. So, as I mentioned at the start, this podcast is sponsored by the scuba diving giant Scuba Pro, who have been making great scuba diving equipment since 1963. And Scuba Pro makes everything from masks and snorkels and fins to wetsuits, dry suits, dive computers. They have a beautiful range of regulators as well, and they have a great range of products that scuba divers love because if you take their fins, for example, they still make their jet fins, which are a design from the 1960s, but divers still love them because they simply got it right the first time. The only upgrade that the jet fins have ever had over the years is to add spring heel straps. And Scuba Pro also makes some of the most cutting-edge fins today, from their Sea Wing Nova and Supernova fins. So Scuba Pro covers the entire range of diving equipment, from their heritage equipment to modern technology. And right now, Scuba Pro has a pair of offers at participating dealers. The first one is a free Octo offer. If you buy a Scuba Pro S620 Ti or the D420 with either a Mark 19 Evo or the Mark 25 Evo first stage, you're going to get yourself a S270 Octo for free, which is a great way to start building a regulator set and start saving yourself some money. The D420 may look a little bit different to some other second stages, but it breathes beautifully. The S620 is a combination of the best features of other Scuba Pro second stages in a great all-rounder of a second stage. The free Octo offer also extends to their S600 with a Mark 25 or a Mark 17 Evo first stage, which is one of their most popular regulators. Again, a very strong all-rounder. That and the G260 or the new G260 Carbon Black Tech with either a Mark 25 or a Mark 19 Evo first stage, you'll get yourself a free R105 Octo. Now, I know that was a lot of numbers that I just threw at you, but if you visit your local Scuba Pro dealer, there's a dealer locator on the Scuba Pro website where you can find your nearest and they can help you find the right regulator for you. The second offer is a dry suit promotion, which is a great way to save some money again or get a fancier dry suit combination in your budget. If you buy a neoprene Everdry 4 or an Exo dry suit, you can get a free K2 light undersuit set or a K2 medium thickness undersuit for £99, which has a suggested retail price of £298, so you're saving yourself some money. Or if you prefer a trilaminate dry suit, if you buy the Evertech breathable or the definition dry, you will get the K2 extreme undersuit for free, which is a great way to stay warmer in the water. Personally, I tend to wear my dry suit year-round here in the UK, so a dry suit is a great investment. Both of these offers are running until the end of July in certain regions and participating dealers, so do ask them first before you turn up demanding for free Scuba Pro equipment. In Lake Tahoe, divers Christine Lewis and female instructor Sid Stimac found a carefully wrapped handgun on a ledge on Rubicon Wall, which is one of Lake Tahoe's deepest areas, on the 16th of July. They were diving at a depth of around 18 meters above a drop-off, which plunges down to 270 meters. So if whoever threw it in had a bit of a stronger throwing arm, they may have lost it forever. And it's on the Californian side, or it was on the California side of the lake. Lewis spotted a package, like half buried in sediment, and Stimac recognized the shape through the duct tape it had been wrapped up in. They brought it back to their charter boat, which belonged to the family dive business Just So Scuba, where Stimac's father, Captain Tom Loomis, cut through the tape. They kind of very carefully had a look inside. Inside layers of deteriorating packaging lay just a shiny 2.2 pistol minus the magazine. There was also a possible clue, reported the divers, in the form of hair stuck to the duct tape. So, of course, they called the local sheriff. Sheriff's patrol boat arrived to remove the gun for forensic testing and to determine whether it could provide evidence for any previous criminal actions. Whoever deposited it in one of the deeper parts of the lake would, yeah, obviously hardly have expected to come back to the surface. Yeah, we're seeing this more and more with like magnet fishing as well. That's quite popular now, where people go to like bridges and things, and they attach a really powerful magnet onto a rope, lob it into the water, pull it back, and whatever sticks to it, they pull out. And invariably, there's some kind of handgun or something that they're pulling out. And then, yeah, of course, it's best to call the authorities. There have been some backfires, as it were, where the police end up getting quite grumpy with the magnet fishermen. So do be sure that you are actually allowed to remove things from the water, even though they're only there to clean up and remove stuff that shouldn't be in there. I've seen some videos of like magnet fishermen who I don't think they were arrested, but the local law enforcement do get fairly grumpy with them. And also, it's kind of best not to remove it from the water, because things react forensically. I think it's better if you like just tag the location so that police divers can locate it more easily, and just say, hey, yeah, we found this, it's at this depth, we've marked it with a DSMB or whatever. The divers turn up, and then they can forensically remove it from the water a little bit more safely. Also, explosives underwater are just horrifically fragile, like chemically, should you like remove them from their nice, cool place that they've been for a long time. You suddenly start moving things around, you bring it out into the sun, and then, yeah, chemical reactions will start changing. So, yeah, if you see something nasty, try to mark the location without actually disturbing it, because you never know what might happen. Also this week, I saw that a US team have developed Final Frontier, which is a three-dimensional diver tracker. Now, the image that they use is obviously just like photoshopped. I mean, I presume so. It's a pretty basic like Photoshop job by the looks of it. They say that they have developed a system, basically an app, that can like make dive computers, more certain dive computers, smartwatches in particular, talk to one another. And they say that, yeah, in low visibility conditions or in emergencies, you can use this to like get a 3D representation of where your dive buddies are. And it takes the form in what they describe as a first underwater 3D positioning app for use with water-resistant smartwatches and other mobile devices. Now, it requires a group of at least 3 divers equipped with the devices, so you all 3 have to have similar dive computers and specific dive computers, and for them to be remaining within 30 meters of each other. So you have to be in relatively close proximity. I mean, 30 meters is quite a distance. The device's existing speakers and microphones can then be used to send acoustic signals and contact each other, whilst the timestamps estimate distances so that the app can track each diver's location relative to the dive leader. So it's similar to how like normal GPS works. We have a series of satellites flying overhead, and they're all broadcasting like time stamps, and the time that it takes for that signal to reach your device, and then you have at least 3 of those. It can work out, oh, okay, I'm so far from this satellite, I'm so far from that satellite, I'm so far from that satellite. That means that I must be here on Earth. And with 3 scuba divers with all these devices, they can talk to one another, they can estimate the distance between each other, and whilst talking to each other, they can get a rough direction. Other divers can, of course, join the network, so long as each remains within 30 meters of each other, and the more that are in this network, I imagine the more accurate it is. Using the app with depth tracking as well, devices such as the Apple Watch Ultra or the Garmin Descent dive computers, the system can locate the diver's formation in 3 dimensions. So they're using So this dive computer, it knows exactly what depth it is. So it knows how far you're like up and down compared to the other scuba diver. It can work out its direction based on the sound acoustic time it takes. So yeah, it kind of, the science makes sense at this point. The lead author, Tuichao Chen, said that mobile devices today can work nearly anywhere on Earth, and you can be in a forest or on a plane and still get internet connectivity, but the one place where you still haven't made any mobile devices work is underwater. It's kind of the final frontier. And yeah, that is the main reason why we don't have underwater GPS yet, because the signals that come from the satellites just can't penetrate that far through water. So as I said earlier, the app's accuracy improves as more devices are added to the group. Testing 4 to 5 devices in lakes and a pool, it was found to estimate locations within an average area of about 1.6 meters. So that's pretty darn close. Close enough for divers to see each other. To obtain actual GPS coordinates for each scuba diver whilst they're in the water, the dive leader, you need to have this like dive leader computer. They need to be wirelessly connected to a surface device on a boat with GPS capabilities. So we have seen this before in a few other dive computers, where you have one unit that's either like connected to a laptop or something similar, and then with a cable there's a little pod that's lowered into the water, and then the other dive computers in the area talk to that, whereas this is quite similar. You have this dive leader computer with an app that is connected to the surface so that they can get actual GPS coordinates. So yeah, kind of interesting, and not at all surprised that that this is going forwards and people have been trying this out. They're also working on communications, so you can send messages to one another. Again, this is something that we have seen before, but not quite to the same extent that they're trying to do in this case. We've had it where, yeah, the person on the laptop surface support can see when a diver is like straying from the group, and they can type out a message and send it to one another. Also, if one of them is running particularly low on gas, again, we've seen this before. As long as you have a wireless air transmitter and it's talking to the computer, then yeah, you can sync that all up and send messages and just say, oh, hey, such and such is running low on gas. It's time to turn around. Yeah, it would be nice, and it would be nice to see this like really continue. It's now that we're seeing more smartwatches coming into the scuba diving market. It's not just scuba computers. We're seeing, yeah, the Apple Watch. We're seeing the Garmin. They're adding all of their other technology and communication devices. I'm not quite sure about the like acoustics. It seems to use the device's existing speakers and microphones can be used to send acoustic signals and contact each other. I imagine that's going to get really messy as soon as you leave like an open, clear blue water. As soon as there's like reefs and coral and other divers getting in the way, you're probably going to get some mixed signals. But yeah, early steps, man. Hopefully this will continue, and we'll start to see this on more and more, and hopefully they'll be able to share it with other dive computer manufacturers, so it's not just on the Apple Watch Ultra and the Garmin Descent fancy dive computers. It'll be on in more like regular dive computers, as it were. But yeah, exciting, and it would be pretty cool to see this, especially for like dive guides and instructors to be able to, yeah, really pinpoint exactly where your buddy is, because it has to be more than or at least 3 divers. Yeah, if you're just diving with your buddy, that's not enough. So maybe, I suppose if you're diving from a boat and it's just the 2 of you, maybe the boat can be the dive leader, and then the 2 of you are making up the second and third divers in the water, so it can work out positioning. I don't know. I just thought it was quite interesting. A lot of the technology I think we've seen before, but to actually have it in consumer available dive computers, yeah, hopefully we'll see something cool coming in the future. Otherwise, I noticed that Techline have a competition at the moment to celebrate their 20th anniversary. Join and win Techline equipment. We celebrate our 20-year anniversary. It's very simple to take part. You just need to publish a single photograph of your configuration that includes Techline equipment as an Instagram post with a description containing the list of the Techline equipment visible in the photograph. Tag their Instagram page and use the hashtag perfect configuration, and then from all the photos they will choose one that will win the prize. Equipment of choice to value of approximately 450 euros. So it's a matter of you kind of have to already own some Techline equipment to get some more Techline equipment. But hey, if you have a set of Techline regulators, a BCD or whatever, they make quite a lot nowadays. They make torches and yeah, a little bit of everything actually, exposure protection. Then yeah, if you upload a photo, tag them in it, and explain what's in the photo, then you can sort of enter with a chance to win more diving equipment, especially when it's free. As far as new dive equipment, nothing particularly new that I've spotted. There was something that I saw on scuba.com it's not new. It's been around for a little while yet, but it's in their new section, so I think they've just added it to their roster. And it's a Dive Right No Mount Tank BCD, and it's a weird device, and it is a weird way of scuba diving. It's basically for like extreme cave diving, where even a side mount BCD is a bit much. It's basically a personal BCD for your cylinder, and when you look at it, I know I'm on the medium of podcasts, so you can't see what I'm describing, but I'm going to do my best. Imagine a rectangle with an inflate valve on one end and a deflate valve on t'other end. And that's pretty much it. It's got a cam band on the other side, and it basically wraps around one side of your cylinder. The cam band holds it in place. It's got some bungee cords to wrap it around the cylinder, and then a bit like a dry suit, it's got that dry suit inflate valve and a dump valve and overpressure valve from BCD. Yeah, you can like top it up so that you can adjust the buoyancy of that particular cylinder, and of course you can change it as the buoyancy changes throughout the dive and you're breathing more gas. And yeah, I just thought it was it's just something a little different. It's not really something that I've touched on before, because it is such a niche product. But I just thought it was kind of interesting, and if you're into scuba diving equipment, it's worth checking out. If you just go to scuba.com, they've got a new in section. It's not the easiest to find on their website. If you go to products and then scroll down below all of the departments, they've got new arrivals, top rated, sales, clearance, and all that kind of stuff. I don't really know the difference between sale and clearance. They're quite synonymous in my mind, but anyway, click on new arrivals and it should be at the top of the list, depending on when you're listening to this, obviously. Yeah, I just think it's kind of cool. I don't tend to. I did my side mount course with steel 7-litre 300 bar cylinders, because that's all I really had access to at the time. And when you're trying to do some of the skill sets in side mount, including disconnecting the bottom and holding them both out in front of you and swimming a certain distance, that's quite tough with these steel cylinders, especially 300 bar steel cylinders, because they're really heavy, and when you hold them out in front of you, your trim suddenly changes. I managed it, but yeah, it feels like you're just torpedoing down to the bottom. So yeah, maybe one of these would have helped. Yeah, no mount diving is It's almost like monkey diving, where you don't wear a BCD basically, and it's all about cramming yourself through the smallest underwater holes. And yeah, when you need the buoyancy, you can adjust it, and it's attached onto the cylinder. Yeah, if you're into your scuba equipment, you want to see something a little bit different, then check it out. It's got their what do they call it? Their like super fabric, their outer shell. It's got that those little dimples all over it, so it's real like abrasion resistant on the outside. Yeah, I just thought it was a little bit cool. But I've had a look through most of the other manufacturers, and they haven't announced anything new. I have been working on. I've got an XD BCD at the moment. I'm halfway through doing the video for that. So if my hairstyle suddenly changes, my beard gets a bit longer randomly in the middle of the video. That's why. What else? I've been doing some travel videos for Aggressor liverboards. One in BVI, the British Virgin Islands, and another one in a teeny tiny little island set called Derawan Islands. It's just off the east coast of Borneo, and it's got some lovely visuals coming out of that. The BVI video that went live on Wednesday, I believe, and this Derawan Island is going out next Wednesday. Otherwise, this Saturday I've got a video on how to properly check that your dive mask actually fits. I think I spoke about that in the last podcast, but that video should be live on Saturday this weekend. Smart videos. I did quite a fun one actually. And they were asking about vintage twin hose regulators. I have an old set of twin hose, and they're in a lot of disrepair, and they need a lot of repair and cleaning work. But they were basically just asking how they work, and they're pretty funky. You don't see them too much nowadays. There are some manufacturers that still make them. Otherwise, that's about it, really. Fairly quiet this week, which is always nice to hear. Yeah, don't forget to check out our website, scubadivermag.com. Check out any news articles that we've been running, and any magazines that we've been publishing. Yeah, remember to check out today's sponsor, which is scubapro.com. They've still got lots of lovely offers on for the time being. Yeah, otherwise, like, share, subscribe, do all that social media stuff that you're also awesome about. Yeah, thanks for listening, everybody, and of course, safe diving. The Scuba Diver Magazine podcast is sponsored by Scuba Pro. For more information, head over to scubapro.johnsonoutdoors.com and find out more about their amazing scuba diving range.